right. All right, we got a few people joining in. Thank you guys for joining up. Pastel.bit. Cool name. All right. We're going to get started here in a few minutes. But I'm sharing my screen. I have what else? I got YouTube Live. Let me share that link. And here we go. Live chat. We do have some popes, fortunately. The popes came in pretty fast. I was surprised.
Good looking, man. You have no idea. These popes mean a lot more than you think. Like, I know you guys know that it's super hype, but it's more super hype than you even think.
It's crazy. I need somebody to explain this to me because I guess I don't go and collect as many popes as I should. But I don't know of anybody actually using them yet. And I know you can use them to distribute like free NFTs and stuff, but I haven't seen that happen yet.
I feel like it's not even about the utility yet that people are so hyped about. It's they're just speculating that there's going to be something, right? In the crypto space, that's why you see people collecting these wearables or just like apps or things like that, right? They feel integrated in the space and they feel part of the community, right? Mm-hmm. So even if the utility comes after, in my opinion, I think it's just feeling like it's like the feeling of belonging, right? Part of a community. And I have lots of questions for you as well regarding the plot. So, since you brought it up, let's get that out of the way.
Sure.
So I was talking to a few community members just because I like to engage with them, right? And I noticed that it was also a similar problem that I was having as well. I have a work schedule, right? And I remember we used to do community calls on Mondays and Thursdays, right? So I would be able to make it every time on Thursday. However, Monday I wouldn't be able to.
Sure.
And ever since we switched, I'm never able to come. That's why I bug you every time about those pull-ups,
sure,
right?
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so I figured, there might be a better mechanism to distribute these pull-ups. Like, for example, I was discussing it with some of my community members. What if the whole point of a pull-up is a proof of attendance, right? So the people that show up in the live chats, they get the pull-up, of course, right? They got to go through the meta zone and get all that done. Super awesome, gets rid of the cartel completely. However, this method kind of leaves out everybody that is part of the community, but is unable to show up.
Sure.
Right? So I was wondering if there was a mechanism that would enable people to go through the MetaZone bot and take care of that. However, at the same time, everyone that is holding a Rovi would also get it, as the Rovi would basically be present for them. Right?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I totally agree with what you're saying. I think anytime that you have like a crypto project of any kind, it's always a global project, right? You have people all over the world like following it, right? For what, because they're interested. And so I totally agree. I think we need to have the Pope be accessible to more people, even though they may not be able to show up. So the reasons why it's set up the way it is for a number of reasons, right? One reason is really the Pope team is trying to make sure that the popes are not distributed to the cartel, right? Because the cartel, they hit me up all the time. It's basically the same message, like when Pope, give me Pope, things like that, right? Which is fine. Like if they want to spend that time, that's cool. That's totally fine. But what we need to do for sure is we developed a MetaZone bot, within the 24-hour period, right? Because we needed it. And so we have it like extremely constrained, right now, only to kind of throttle like what's broken, what's not broken. And then we're planning on expanding it. So you don't necessarily have to be on the call, every single call, to get a Pope. You just need a Rovi NFT, right? For example. Or if you just show up, maybe you get one Pope over another if you don't have a Rovi NFT. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this. The most important thing to consider when giving out Popes is that it has to be automated. I spent way too much time sending Popes, like at some point, and it's just not the best use of time. And so that's why the bot is important. And but I 100% agree with you. We need to figure out like what that threshold is so that we capture the community, but we kind of weed out the cartel members.
Yeah. I think like slowly as we're progressing, I think we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Right. But anyways, so the whole point of this call was for me to actually be able to communicate with the rest of the community members and just to clarify some concepts that might be unclear.
Okay, sure.
Because I'm not able to come on those community calls, right? So I figured this would be an opportune time. So I wanted to start out with, I noticed that on OpenSea, right, there's 4 crews that have been minted so far, right? There's the Star Crew, Invasion, Origin, and Unleashed, right?
Yep.
However, it shows some of the Rovies are showing up as Genesis still.
Is that the crew name,
Genesis? I was very curious that if that was just a glitch or we had a secret 5th class.
No, definitely not. Let me see. So OpenSea, we can go to Rovies, and I think it could be a placeholder because they were all called Genesis at some point. And so the default crew name, I think, was Genesis, and then it gets updated upon minting.
So the ones I'm talking about, they already have their Rovi showing up.
Yeah, so I think if you click on any of these Rovies and go to view on Rovies.
Yeah. So on MetaZone, it says in Invasion. Yeah. However, on I noticed that some of them, even though they were a postman, so okay, that makes sense. So there is no Genesis Rovies.
Correct.
Okay, awesome. Let's see what else I have here.
Yeah, that's a good question. So here's the thing with OpenSea. So as great as OpenSea is, their integration with Polygon is still relatively new. Like it's not even like 6 months old, and so they haven't created the APIs for developers to quickly update the metadata upon like some function, right? Some logic. And so the only way to see like the latest information is to either refresh the page itself or go to the origin page where this data is being hosted. But eventually, once they have the APIs available, as soon as you unbox or you level up or whatever it is, right, it will be reflected on OpenSea like within a few minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. I like that. As more I engage with the space, I find out I learn something new every day, right? And I think that's the point.
For sure.
So what actually had me like initially? I've been here since the pre-sale, right? Like before the pre-sale. But ever since that, what actually brought me to Rovies, and it kept me here, and it's gotten me to a point where I'm engaging with you, right, face to face.
Yep.
Is because it's so community inclined, right? Everything is based on the community. The assets are given to the community. We have things like roundtable calls. We have things like this where you can just message the developer and be like, hey, I have some questions and I'd like to talk to you face to face, right? And things like that are allowed. And even accessories being created by people like just the creators, right? So my question was that's all good, but I feel like it's the development side, like developing the metas or just those accessories. I feel like they're more like for people that already are integrated in the space and they already know how to use things like Blender or like 3D development softwares, right? And that's where the whole conversation or the debate for builder versus SDK comes in.
Sure. Yep.
I think, right?
Yep.
So my question was, how can we as a community like encourage creators to actually go out there and experiment? And or we have something like tutorials, or we could do something. Sure. I was wondering how we could engage more creator activity, because I think that's what MetaZone or Rovies or just the metaverse in a sense is going to be thriving on.
100%
of
agree.
creator content, right?
100% agree. Yeah, so I have a couple of thoughts. So MetaZone, the platform is really for creators to make content, and we want to give the creators the tools to make that content like quickly, because what we're dealing with right now in terms of building the metaverse is you're basically starting with a blank page. And when you talk to any developer, they never start with a blank page. I mean, they're hardcore developers. Some of them do, but typically you don't start with a blank page. That's why Unreal Engine exists. That's right. That's why Unity exists, so that developers don't start with a blank page. Imagine if a developer that wanted to make a game had to make the physics engine, had to make the database, all the stuff that's necessary for a game. Like you wouldn't see a lot of games as you see right now. So we need to build the tools to facilitate creation in the metaverse, because every metaverse is going to have its own limitations, right? So Decentraland, for example, is using Unity. But if you talk to any like a game developer, a game designer, they know that Unity is capable of so much more than what's actually happening in Decentraland. And that's because Decentraland is hosted on a decentralized like server node system. And then it's a web browser, and then you start piling on these limitations, and then all of a sudden it's like you tell a developer that you're going to build in Decentraland with Unity. It's like, oh, that's easy, but then when you look at it, it's like it's extremely difficult because it's all watered down. So so part of this is like actually making the tools to make it easier for developers to come in, but on top of the tools, we need to make videos on how to use those tools. We need to make more roundtables to discuss like some of the glitches or some of the problems that you're seeing with the tools. So there's definitely a lot of stuff left to be done, and we need to figure out a way to get the community involved in making that content, with us. Because, there's only so much time, and there's so much like available like mind share to like make everything. So yeah, Greensphere, I totally agree. This is like one of the things that we're trying to figure out how to scale up properly, because it's one of the most important things that we're doing is enabling the creators. And another thing is like the creators are the single most important piece of the metaverse. The single most important, because if you don't have the creators like engaged, you're gonna see land that's completely green and nothing on it. So yeah, I think that's sort of like what we think about all the time. I mean, we're writing a white paper based on this specific topic. It's like enabling creators. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of stuff to consider, but we think about this all the time.
Oh, tell me about it. I think about it all the time too, and I'm not even on the team. So you said the white paper, right? Have you guys? Are you guys almost like halfway through or wrapping up or something?
No, so we're at the tail end of writing this white paper, and this one's specifically for MetaZone, just because it has a wider kind of application to things. We'll write one for Rovi's because it has like its own world, but we gotta start with the platform first. Get that like out there. Talk about what our plans are, and have people give us feedback on that white paper, because like I said, it's like Ayman and I started this podcast in 2019, and we've been talking about the metaverse pretty much relatively on day one, and we've been thinking about like all the things required to really make the metaverse what it should be, and all that stuff is going to be in the white paper. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what everybody thinks, because we spent a lot of time on it. So once we get that done, then we're gonna focus back on Rovi white paper, just because it has like I said, like its own world and its own metaverse and its own economy, and we want to be able to launch the Rovi token, under this fair distribution model. So we're starting to look into exactly how that's going to look like, and so yeah, there's obviously a lot of things to do, and most importantly, without having like Corona Zombies or Rovi's or Ethermon, we can't really.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, we can't really.
You can't even describe it. Like,
Yeah,
how are you gonna
exactly.
relate information? I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's so crazy because like if I were to pitch MetaZone to an investor and pitch it to somebody, they'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, what is this, like, making digital content, like, it's
Oh
just so
man.
weird.
Oh, you have no idea how funny it is. So, and you like, you literally walked into two of my questions, with what you just said. So I'm gonna go with the first one first, and then I'm gonna go with the second.
Sure.
So, as for the fair distribution, do you have any like rough ideas of how you guys might be looking into that? Like some options you guys have in front of you? We'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So when it comes to fair distribution, there's a number of ways to do it. So if you look at what happened with Ethereum name service, right? They did a fair distribution, right? There was another project we were looking at. I can't remember right now, but it
have you tried a remark?
Was it Remark? But it
Remark did it with the Canaria birds. So basically, everyone that had a Canaria bird received a Remark, and nobody else. There was no pre-sale. Or there might have been one, but I don't. Like it was probably tiny.
Sure.
But basically, everyone that held a Canaria bird and the different classes of birds, they are the only people that were allotted the Remark token. And when the Remark token hit the market, it basically everyone that wanted to take profit took profit, but everyone held it. And like if you look at it today, it's doing really well for itself.
Yeah, I think it might have been Remark, because I remember thinking that 100% of all the tokens went to the community and nothing.
Yeah. That's it. That's what happened.
Okay. So I think it might have been Remark. So, so that is a degree of fair distribution, and I think that's what makes sense for Rovi. Now, there still needs to be consideration on like keeping the development going. So unless that there's different ways of doing fair distribution. You can either just airdrop all 100% of the tokens to the community, or you sell some to investors and then you airdrop the remaining like 70% or whatever it is. But I think the way that makes sense for games, and I think what we want to structure as far as a platform as a service to creators, is develop a way where fair distribution means that the tokens that are required to play the game are the tokens that are earned only during the game. So
yes, I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
So you obviously know about this stuff, right? Assuming that the tokens are distributed to the community, and sure, you're absolutely right. There does need to be a liquidity pool that gets started from the investors, right? So we can't just have just random stuff going around like that. So, in my opinion, I'd like to have you critique this idea. So, how would it be if a certain small percentage was sold to investors, right, to start that initial liquidity pool, take care of audits and whatever, and the rest was distributed to the community, and instead of being airdropped all, it would basically, you would receive like 5% of your airdrop, and the rest would be vested for the next 2 years. Because in the beginning of the game, there's going to be a lot less activity than after the game has already created a lot of content and it is attracting attention, right? So if you give all the tokens in the beginning, right, you suffer a big dump. Versus if there's like a small portion given and the rest is vested, these people, they're going to be engaging with the game for a longer time, and they're going to basically use it accordingly. The currency, I mean, they're going to be using the currency accordingly because they only have so much, and to get a bigger bag, they're going to have to keep playing.
Right? No, I totally agree. So, it's I like the vesting. The thing that I'm thinking about right now is when you have investors involved, then you start having to follow regulations. And so once those regulations are sort of like required to follow, then there's so much room that you can kind of like do as a project. So now if you just spin up a token like the Rovi token and you completely give that out to the community, you don't have to worry about regulations at that point. It's a utility token. The only way to play the game is to have the token. So, but when going back to the airdrop, I think what makes sense for games is to airdrop some of the tokens, right? 2%, 3%, whatever it is, to the community who are holding NFTs. And then you need those tokens in order to interact with these metas, right? You have to spend some tokens in order to upgrade your Rovi, things like that. And then when you're playing the game itself, you're earning those tokens, and then you have to compensate the landowner, the meta owner with those tokens as well. So it's sort of like an incentive model to deploy the content, and then incentive to encourage people to come play, and then when they play, they're earning the tokens, so they come back to play some more, upgrade their Rovies, and it's like this reinforced economy. And so distributing the token can be done just a number of ways, but I like the idea of vesting for sure. It's just, how long do you vest, and how much, right? How many tokens are you actually going to be distributing in this model,
Yeah. I feel like you could find the equilibrium. I feel like that's probably not the challenge. I feel like just how it's done. I feel like that's how it matters more. And how about this? So instead of the private investors, because that, like you're saying, it incites regulation.
Mm-hmm.
How about you just make it into an NFT? Like how a lot of games they like Star Atlas even, right? They start their game development by selling NFTs or metas. Like what I, in my opinion, I loved about Rovies was instead of giving or selling just normal NFTs, or just secondary NFTs, I should say that, for the game. Rovies, you guys chose to give the primary NFT, which was the Rovi itself,
mm-hmm.
right? So I loved that. But what we could do is for the token distribution, to avoid regulation, you could create just normal NFT, like a chest,
Sure.
and be like, this is for this much Ethereum, stable price, this is pre-sale essentially, right? And you're basically selling the NFT, but everyone that holds the NFT also receives the airdrop,
mm-hmm.
right? That could, I don't know, maybe it could work.
Yeah, totally. So it's the good thing about making NFT games is that you can easily tie an ERC20 token to a utility. So you don't really have to worry about any regulations. You do have to be able to defend it, like in case, the SEC knocks on your door. But if your token is designed to be utilized within some sort of function, we really don't have anything to worry about. So now when it comes to airdropping based on holding an NFT, it's the same thing. It's like the reason why we're distributing the token is not airdropping, just it's distribution.
Yeah.
Is because the players for this game need that token, right? And that's it. Like that's the only reason. It's not like we're giving out dividends or anything, because it's not like that. So yeah, I mean, I like thinking about these things because it's weird. In the crypto space, you have to think about like an economy. You have to be an economist in
100%.
order to make this stuff work, because being in gaming and designing games, you never had to recognize this is a problem to solve. But when it comes to money, this is one of the most important things. So it's actually fun thinking about this stuff. And I kind of wish Iman was here, because this is his jam. He really likes talking about economy and governance. So, hopefully.
You know what? Hopefully, God willing, we have lots of these. I'm always down to come on, right?
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
So I regarding tokenomics. So I understand that the Hollow meta is going to be released soon,
mm-hmm.
and soon after a couple weeks or a month, you're going to be releasing the other meta as well,
mm-hmm.
the play to earn meta.
Yep.
Right. I have a question regarding that. So before the matrix is launched, because
mm-hmm.
that's when you're going to get to deploy the supercharger and transporters, right? Before the matrix is launched, how exactly are people going to be charging their Rovies for the play to earn meta?
Sure. Okay. So I guess you can see my screen, right, through Discord.
No, I'm just on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll go on Discord if you want.
I can I can share my screen on Zoom here. That way you see what I'm looking at.
Okay.
Okay, so I got here. Okay, so I'm in the world right now in Decentraland,
Okay.
and the question is, how are you going to be able to charge the Rovies? So the way that we're doing this is, I think, probably the most sustainable way to have developers make content in any metaverse, and it's piece by piece. Unfortunately, it's not, in traditional gaming. I mean, you could debate this all day, but in traditional gaming, they spend $50 million, $100 million, whatever it is, to make a cool AAA game. They release it, and it's supposed to work, right? It's supposed to be tested and everything, and it's supposed to work. And a lot of times in the last couple of years, a lot of the traditional games haven't worked, right? Cyberpunk 2077, it launched and it didn't work, right? And they spend like about $100 million on that game.
Yeah.
And it's because it's hard.
I had a lot of hype on it too.
It had yeah, man. It was supposed to be a really badass game, and then it just kind of fell flat. But it's because making games are generally pretty expensive, right? You have to get the game designer, you have to design the game, you have to get the 3D models and the animations and like this whole thing, right? It's the same thing in the metaverse. And but the interesting thing about the metaverse is that what we call the developer bandwidth, which is land, the developers typically needed that bandwidth in order to make content, and then they basically had to make a game from a blank canvas, which is one of the hardest things to do. But anyway, so if we're going to be developing this game, it has to be done in pieces because it's the most economically viable way to do it. And so what these pieces look like are metas, right? You have the hologram meta, you have the replicator meta, the battle PvE and PvP meta. So you have all these like little pieces that can be distributed to the community. And so the question is like, okay, once these pieces are distributed, then the idea is that you should be able to go to each piece and like do what you need to do: upgrade, level up, charge up, battle, all these things. So when it comes to releasing in pieces, we have to think, what are the pieces that need to be released in succession, right? So the first thing we're releasing is the hologram meta. So all that does is just a way to, at the beginning, just flex that you have a Rovi and that people can look at each other's Rovies in Decentraland for now.
Sorry to interrupt. Just a quick question before I forget. So when the hologram meta actually deploys the Rovi, right, in Decentraland, are you going to be able to move it around like your avatar, or is it just going to be roaming around like Ethermon on grass?
I think at the beginning, it's just going to be roaming around. So this particular meta is just so that it shows up in the world. And the reason why that's important is because inherently things don't show up unless you design for it, right? And then on top of that, when things show up, it's not a shared experience, meaning like this, even though you and I can see this thing right here, it's because it's not moving around. If this Rovi was a real Rovi and it was roaming around, you and I would be seeing that Rovi in different locations, right? Because it's a local experience, right?
Yeah.
So, which is a problem, right? In the metaverse, is we're supposed to expect to see the things in the same place where they are, because that's what you expect in the metaverse. So then
you're bringing Heisenberg's principle into Rovies. I love it.
I know, right? Yeah, the dead cat. Yeah. So, so now we have a way to kind of sync the experiences, right? It's in Decentraland, it would be the WebSocket server. So anytime you deploy a hologram, it's deployed within a WebSocket server. So that means that when a Rovi is roaming around in a particular XYZ direction, it's the same XYZ for everybody else, right? So now, when you get this hologram meta, it's just literally for all of us to see our own Rovies, right? It's a very simple meta. And then the next phase of this would probably be to deploy the supercharger metas so that you can charge, right? And so that's going to probably be the next thing. If it's not that, then it's the battle arenas. So we have to figure out like which one makes the most sense, and probably just deploying the superchargers just so you can charge them, even though you can't really deplete battery yet, makes the most sense. Because then once the battle arenas are launched, you can go in and battle and then go and charge. So another thing to consider is when these things are deployed, you may not necessarily, the economy hasn't really started, right? So you'll be able to play these things for free so you can test them, and we can start making sure everything works, like there's no glitches. And then once once we can have a full closed loop ecosystem, then we release the token, and then you start playing for real this time. Does that make sense?
I think I got an answer for my question. So basically, the answer was until the token is released, we're going to be in the test trial run.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it has to be that way just because, like it's like you're saying, it's like you can battle, but it doesn't really cost anything to battle because there's no token, right? And then you can charge, but it doesn't cost anything because there's no token. So we can do off-chain tokens, but then, it's not as desirable if it's off-chain for the most part.
So question. So during this trial phase, right, are we still going to be able to get loot? And I'd like you to actually just explore play to earn gaming from its foundation, like how people actually make money. Because I feel like even people in the MetaZone Discord, they have a understanding of play to earn gaming because some people have played Axie Infinity and games like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they understand it, right? And how you don't lose money in the game. You might lose money on OpenSea and because the NFTs went down, but in the game, you're not really gambling.
Sure. So I think what we can do, and this is actually a really good question. So what we can do is there will be assets distributed when you're playtesting this game, but I think once we release the token, we have to wipe the slate clean across the board. And that way, because now at that point there's money at stake, right? You're actually spending, cryptocurrency in order to upgrade your character. I'm just putting that out there just to get some feedback, but that's what I'm thinking. That's initially when we're designing this thing is like, it has to be tested, and the only way to test it is for things to not cost anything. And if that's the case, then we should be able to have players upgrade their Rovies with the metal hedron and the power cores. But then once the token is live, then you got to start all over. And then now you're actually like spending cryptocurrency to upgrade. So I want to get your feedback on that. Like, what do you think?
In my opinion, I think you're going to get a lot of people upset because, I feel like it's not even because of the money. Because I don't think gamers care too much about money. Gamers care about good content. In my opinion,
sure,
and just escaping from reality, right? So, in my opinion, I think if you wipe the slate clean, you might upset a lot of people. However, I have an alternate solution for that. So you could wipe the slate clean, but make it into like a separate NFT, like a picture. You take a picture of it, and it could be like just an NFT that cannot be used in the Rovi game verse. However, you still have it as a collector because you were part of that initial trial arc, and this is where you took your Rovi to.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. So it's a form of reward for people helping us test the game once it's testable. That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. That's it.
And ultimately, I mean, we can keep track of all these testers, and we can keep track of how many metal hedrons and power cores are being collected from the PvE arena. So we can keep track of everything. I only mention, wiping the slate clean to make it completely fair, I suppose, but we don't necessarily have to do that. We can just start the game from whatever level you're at on your Rovi. That's the beginning.
It might be better, like you're saying, wiping the slate clean because it's more fair and it will attract a lot more people that are not in the project already. Because people that are already in, they strongly believe in this project, right? They don't mind, right? Even if I disagree with you, the rest of the community will still be like, who cares, right? If you guys are saying it, we're with you, right? Regardless. But like to gather new interest, I feel like they would prefer, because me, if I was getting into a project and it was already up, I'm going to be reluctant, right? Versus if it's just fresh off starting out. But you could still give like it's like a POAP in my opinion, right? It's just like, I was here in the trial period, and at least for training my Rovi, and we're good.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think I have to. So let's do this. I think it makes sense to keep track of like everything that's going on in terms of testing and upgrading your Rovies and everything. And then when we launch the token, that you keep your stats, right? I think it makes
Oh
sense.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Now I'll say that with one caveat. Now, if from a development standpoint, there's some like economic issue for doing that, like in the sense that it breaks the overall game. Like there's a Rovi whale that's so far ahead that he's just like wiping the slate clean and just like mining all these Rovi tokens just because he was early. Like let's say it was you. It's like in that point, it'll be like, okay,
you know how many Rovies I have?
no,
I have a lot.
you do. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, what if there's like one guy like kind of ruining the fun
Yeah.
after? So we do have to consider that. So that's the only caveat. If there isn't that guy, then the people in early should be rewarded. So I think I agree with that.
Yeah. And I feel like even the whales, because you guys are giving a lot of freedom, a lot of freedom. You're literally letting the invisible hand take control, and you're saying you guys take care of whatever, right? So yes, that is a very 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 real issue that could be upcoming,
Yeah.
especially if a lot of whales get in, because this project has been under the radar for a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? So the ones that know about it, they have been collecting. So I'm confident that at least there's like 20, 30 whales in Rovies.
Yeah.
You know? And hey, straight up, that's like, I'm not against it, right? Because in essence, they are locking their liquidity in a project, right? So, they should be rewarded accordingly. But,
And ultimately,
At the end of it, I feel
there's gonna be whales in every sort of
Yeah,
game or industry,
exactly.
whatever it is. That's how life works, I guess. And so what we can't do is like just have whales be so far ahead, because you have to play the game in order to like compete, right? You can't just have money and all of a sudden you're just like dominating everybody. That shouldn't be how games work. Right? If the player that spends the most time on the Rovies, that guy probably should be, dominating, right? So that's kind of what we want to build. We want to make sure that players who are playing the game are the ones benefiting from the game by playing. So,
But think about it like this. So imagine a whale. He has, let's say, what's a whale Rovi number, in your opinion, by the way?
let's see. Anything above like 20, I would think, is a whale.
I'm a certified whale.
Yeah.
But but basically, so imagine having over 20 Rovies, right? You have so much money invested in the project, right? But now you're actually going to be on the forefront, because you're the one that's going to be training every single one of your Rovies,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like the whales are actually going to be the one that are actually putting in the work.
Sure. I totally agree with that. And then, I've already been fielded some questions on the DMs about doing like a sponsorship that you can kind of, share your Rovies with like other players so they can go and play for you.
Like Axie?
Like Axie, yeah. Very much like Axie, yeah. So I think we talked about this in one of the community calls, whether it made sense for us to build that or the community to build that. And the consensus at the time was that the community should build that functionality. Meaning like create a website and we'll support it like in an API sense, in a technical sense. But as far as like us hosting like the sponsorship stuff, like it seemed like it was better that the community did it, right, versus us. So it's a possible thing. Now, will it happen like on day one? Probably not. But once the community gets organized, I can see that I can see that happening in the sense where whales are allowing people to play. And in exchange for playing, you get some of the Rovi tokens that are earned, right? Just like a general play to earn experience, right?
I feel like that would be good, but like maybe like later on, because if we do it early on, then we're going to be literally falling into the trap that you were saying about
totally
whales taking over.
Totally
right? So whales got to grind first,
yeah,
and then they can sit back and reap passive income.
Sure.
In my opinion.
No, I totally agree. And ultimately, I think if a community collaborates on this function, on this like sponsorship function, they still need our input somehow in order to distribute the Rovies to another player. So we can throttle that to make sure it doesn't get out of hand at the in the early stages, but potentially it's going to form, and if the community allows it, then we'll support it.
No, yeah, I think that's awesome. I wanted to talk to you about the breeding mechanisms as well. Yeah, like I'm jumping ahead, but
before you get there, let's distribute the Pope. And let me figure out how to do this. Is Oscar on the call? Yeah, he is. All right, Oscar, you're gonna back me up here. I'm going to what's the word here? So we're gonna distribute the Pope, but give me 1 second. There's a function I need to evoke here. Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, so the function is okay, perfect. All right, so now everybody can DM the MetaZone bot, the MetaZone IO bot. Let me type that into the live chat. At MetaZone IO bot, and type in the password is Rovi Talk. So DM the MetaZone bot the password Rovi Talk, and you should get a link, or you should start the verify process again. So every time we do this, I think you have to verify every single time, but yeah, it should work. And go ahead, chime into the chat. Let me know if you guys are able to get in. What's going on, Mansoor? Okay, Lord Ginger Ninja got Pope. Excellent. Yeah, man, this Pope came together like in like the last hour or 2 hours or so, and the Pope team distributed pretty quickly. I was surprised. They usually don't do that.
Hey, I'm telling you, if it's meant to be, it'll be.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? We'll forget about breeding after. So could you actually tell us how we could actually get popes ourselves? If because I feel like popes is huge. Popes is way too huge for people to not know about it, right? Like music platforms are taking off, right?
Sure.
And on crypto, and I feel like artists, as soon as they're exposed to popes, it's going to go viral.
So what do you mean by get popes yourselves? Like, what are you talking about?
So for example, the whole point of MetaZone and Rovi was to basically display and showcase how a game can be sprung up by distributing community assets and just building a community off of that, right? So, and that's why popes is one of the features of MetaZone, right? Because you guys give popes for Rovies, right? So I'm assuming that you're that's one of the features that you guys are trying to showcase, that this is also another tool you guys can use to engage communities, right? So I'm saying how can we generate our own POAPs?
Oh, I see. So are you specifically talking about like you generating some popes to give out to your community, or what?
Yes, exactly. So for any creator, not just me specific.
Okay. So here's the thing. So we've been using popes for a good minute, and what's happened recently with the Pope cartel is they've been taking advantage of the password, right? So what's happened now is the Pope team has stopped new issuers from issuing popes. So I don't know if you've struggled.
That's horrible.
Yeah, I don't know if you struggled actually trying to issue popes, or have you tried to issue a pope yourself?
No, I haven't. I haven't looked into it. That's why I was asking.
Oh, okay. So there's a process that used to exist where anybody could issue the pope. So anybody could do it. And in a lot of cases, if you just issued a pope, there would be nobody to go and get it, because the community would just be starting out, right? So now with the cartel like sort of like ruining the party for everybody, now there's no new issuers that can come in. Now it's going to be reinstated eventually with like this new scheme that they're coming up with, but not anybody can issue popes anymore. And as a matter of fact, they sent a pope issuance NFT to those issuers that can actually do that. So like there's an actual issuer NFT now.
See. So even though they took it out, I bet you feel special because you have one.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just because now I can call myself the Pope Lord.
Yeah.
And now
right.
I'm the distributor. So yeah, it was cool. But you know, what I guess my reservation with the Pope is how big the cartel is. The cartel is huge. And there's a ton of them. Like I get DMs all the time. I'm getting DMs right now. It's like, when Pope? I was like, we just distributed it. So you know these cartels are not paying attention. That's the problem. So, but it's fine. You know they're trying to figure out a solution for this. But yeah, I think it's important to be able to issue popes. And you know we were thinking about since a long time that we wanted to design a meta that allows people who own it to issue their popes directly from their land. And so we'll probably consider like reigniting that whole idea, but yeah, you should be able to issue your own popes from your land if you wanted to.
Without going through the whole process of the distributor, the NFT and all that?
No. So the Pope team has a process to like submit a Pope, and then there's like a little bit of a review process just to make sure that they're not issuing NFTs based on like, you know, gratuitous like image, right? So there's a little bit of review, and then they send you basically a text file with a bunch of links, and then that text file you can use to kind of manually distribute or use a bot to distribute. So what we would do with this meta is that once you get that text file, you can just submit it into the meta, and then that Pope machine on your land would distribute the content automatically. Does that make sense?
So basically, for it would still be like Rovi popes.
It could be anything. It could be any Pope. It could be green cipher popes. It could be anything. So it's all totally up to you. But it's your meta and it's your Pope dispenser, so you can do whatever it is.
Okay, so everyone on this call that is part of the community, we all have a vision for Rovies, right? We all have like a dream where we see them, right? But that's basically going off of what we know off of you, right? What's the vision you see for Rovies? Like, where do you see Rovies at like its destination?
Well, kind of like we've talked about before, that we've designed this game to be, like, I guess this could be a genre called Infinity type games. The genre is like, a first-person shooter multiplayer. You can play that until you die, pretty much, right? It's the same like gameplay, right? You can basically shoot each other and it's over. So when designing this game, we knew that it had to be like an infinite experience. So we have to have sort of like a way where, even 30 years from now, you can still play the Rovi game and you can continue like earning tokens. So one of the biggest considerations in like this design is replenishing like the Rovi tokens to continue issuing. So, but where I see this game going is a viable play to earn metaverse experience. I think when you jump into the metaverse, there's going to be tons of activities to do, but one of those activities will be a play to earn, function, play to earn activity. And I think one of those activities will be Rovi for a long time, just because the most important thing you can do when designing one of these Infinity games is not only consider the economics of it, but the gameplay and like the sustainability of the activities that you're doing. Because once it becomes unsustainable, like it's either exploited or the game dies, and we don't want that to happen. And most importantly, there's ways to fix these things, right? So just because we launch, the 10 different metas or however many it's going to be, it doesn't mean the game design is over. Like we're always like fixing things and adding stuff and subtracting stuff, like whatever it is to make it sustainable, that's what we're going to do. So I think overall, like it's going to be one of those things that you kind of just passed down, like in terms of like, hey, instead of playing that traditional game, why don't you play Rovi so you can just mine some tokens, you know? So yeah, that's kind of where I see it ending up.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
Okay. So I just want to retrace my steps a little bit. So we were talking about tokenomics, right? Have you guys thought about the supply? Like, if distribution we discussed, but have you guys given some thought to supply, like supply or inflation?
Inflation is probably a good idea here, but so what? As far as we've considered in terms of like the design of the token or the tokenomics specifically, is there will be some of it airdropped or distributed to the community so they can begin playing, right? But the majority of the tokens will be just completely mined, right? So when you're talking about supply, as like, it doesn't really matter if we have 1 billion tokens or 10,000. Like, most importantly, it's like, how do you, where's the majority and how do you earn the token, right? That's really the biggest consideration.
Yes, I agree with you from gameplay mechanics. But when it comes to free market and when, let's say, gear actually gets listed on exchanges, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the tokenomics is going to be huge.
Yeah,
and
totally
it's going to be a huge factor in deciding whether or not the token does well in the market or not.
Yeah, well, one thing that we'll probably want to encourage is the community to add liquidity to the token. So we'll have probably a mechanic to reward those liquidity providers with more Rovi tokens for providing liquidity. But other than that, I think we're going to be providing our own liquidity as well. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out like a model for any other creator to come into MetaZone and make their own game using this model. That way, because just kind of like we talked about in the beginning of the call, is if you have a creator and you say, we have this metaverse and we need to build stuff, and you give them a blank canvas, they'd rather make an app for the App Store. They'd rather make an app for the Android store because there's tools already there. The ROI is much better just because they have to spend less time making stuff. And so we can't have that in the metaverse. So we need to provide them with the tools. And one of the tools is like in economics as a service. So we need to design at least one form of economics that has a closed loop that makes sense for creators to use. And then they can go and make anything that they want, because now that the economics is sort of solved, and they can make adjustments based on the gameplay itself. But fundamentally, as long as you have a game with a closed loop economy, it should work. It should be sustainable. So yeah, I mean, as far as the supply goes, it's just a matter of like how much of the percent of the tokens are going to be mineable versus how many are in actual circulation.
So another question. So how exactly are we planning on funding the treasury? Because I feel like that's what's rewarding the people, right? That's where all these gear tokens are coming from.
Well, yeah. So the treasury is going to be funded upon like minting, right? And so the treasury will have X amount of Rovi tokens. Now, the value of those tokens are completely dependent on the market conditions, right? Sometimes it's going to be extremely high, sometimes it's going to be extremely low. But if let's say 100 million Rovi tokens are in the treasury, then it could be worth a penny or $1 billion. It's still going to be used for mining, right? Mining, through gameplay.
This might add like a lot of complication. It's probably a bad idea, but hear me out anyways. Have you guys thought about burn mechanics? Like for example, like Binance coins, a lot of them, they started it. SafeMoon started it, right? Mm-hmm. And basically why I'm trying to bring that up is because in my opinion, it did wonders for the liquidity pool.
So I have a couple of thoughts about burn mechanics, and the one that comes to mind quickly is, I mean, we've been in talks with like a bunch of legal teams, and typically burn mechanics are frowned upon from a regulatory perspective. Now, when you're talking about a game like Rovi, where there's going to be a heavy emphasis on like fair distribution and a lot less on like investors and things like that, then a burn mechanic might make sense. So we'll definitely consider that for sure. But we're talking about like, an infinity game. We want to figure out like a long life for this game, and burning tokens may not make sense in that situation. We don't know yet.
Like, what I mean to say is, you're like, I used the wrong word. I'm sorry. I used the word burn. What I meant to say was distribute.
Mm.
Okay. So basically, what SafeMoon, I'm not sure if you know SafeMoon's tokenomics. So they started off with 1 trillion tokens,
Sure.
and basically there's a 10% tax on every buy. Okay, so half of it gets distributed to the community. Everyone holds it, that holds the token, and the other half goes to a liquidity pool that stays in SafeMoon forever. Right, and that's how basically SafeMoon, even after being a meme coin, even after huge dumps, it's still able to maintain the liquidity of like 3 billion almost.
Interesting.
2 point something billion.
Okay, so what mechanic are they using to sustain that?
So a lot of coins actually took their lead and they followed it. So they basically, every time you buy SafeMoon or any of these,
I remember
meme coins,
this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you buy SafeMoon
Or you sell it.
or sell it, a percentage goes into the treasury, right?
10%. So 10% gets taxed. So 5% goes to treasury and 5% goes to all the holders.
Sure.
So it's not.
I like that.
I feel like certain percent gets burned too.
Okay. Yeah, so Iman and I did a video on SafeMoon just because so many people were talking about it, and we did see that, and I remember if I have to go back to the video, but I remember saying that it was a smart implementation of like of how to replenish a supply, right, or how to keep the token going, because the 10%, I mean, being replenished and then being used back into the ecosystem makes a lot of sense. It's completely viable. I think that's a good idea. I don't know enough to like say that it will work for Rovies, but it's definitely a viable option for sure to actually implement for the Rovi token.
Might be cool, you never know.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it does make sense. It's like it always reminds me back to like when we first looked at sushi, the sushi swap protocol, and seeing 1,000% yields and thinking automatically that it was like some sort of scam. Just right off the bat, it's like no way anybody can earn 1,000%. This is a scam, right? They're just taking tokens, and turns out the whole industry adopted it, right? So
yeah, it was not a scam.
Yeah, and so now the SafeMoon, I think they came up with a really solid mechanic, and I think it's something that people will adopt, and we might as well adopt it for Rovies.
Might be interesting. The obviously the whole point of this call was just to like discuss this, right? Nothing's written in stone.
Yeah.
For everyone that's watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah.
So do not quote Will and be like, hey, you told us that we're gonna be the next SafeMoon.
Yeah, right. Yeah, eventually Rovi's gonna be $1 billion token just because of SafeMoon protocol.
Hey, you know what? I hope you're right. Yeah. I hope you're very right, Will.
Yeah, we'll see.
I hope you're very right. Okay, next I want to kind of discuss breeding, because I feel like everyone's super hyped about breeding.
Okay,
right?
Sure.
I want to know how basically you can have, because do you need one Rovi or two Rovies? Because they're robots. Like actually it made sense because they're supposed to be organic things, but like I don't understand.
So you need two Rovies just because in this case it's called replication. So via replication, we need sort of inputs from two different sources, right? And those inputs are the Rovi, like in
other words, you're going to clone it.
Yeah, exactly. So the DEX itself contributes to what the output is going to be, and so that's why you need two. So it is a breed mechanic, but we're calling it a replication because these are robots. They don't necessarily breed.
I don't know about that, Will. Have you heard about Sophia? You know the robot that got the citizenship in Dubai? She wants a baby.
Oh, shoot.
Right? So I don't know about robots not breeding, man.
Yeah.
It might be closer than you think.
Yeah, man. With Elon's Cyberlink, I mean,
oh man,
we're gonna become robots one day.
Oh, it's gonna be some crazy stuff. Okay, so next I wanted to kind of go over the cruise. Okay, you know how we're gonna have like, I believe like 9 or 10 crews. something like
Yeah,
that.
it's gonna be around 10 crews. That's right.
Yeah, like rough estimate,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we're going to be let's use the analogy of MetaKey, because I think MetaKey is something that a lot of people are familiar with, especially yourself,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like that would be a good analogy. So MetaKey, and I think Ayman was trying to talk about the same thing as well. He was trying to do the whole Grandmaster thing, right? So I kind of wanted to explore that with you.
Sure.
So we have the first three classes being origin, invasion, and star, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that that's what it is, right? Because unless you're going to add unleash to it too, because I had another question, but I think I'll make it wait.
Sure.
So what type of movement forward are we going to be taking to make sure that the initial three crews, or even it could be shorter or more, how are they going to retain value, or like just have people want to keep holding and using? Because as things get minted, right, people get impatient, they try to start selling even at a loss.
Sure.
Right. So I feel like what Maddie did with the MetaKey and the whole Grandmaster, I think that was brilliant, right? Because it encourages old community members that they not only do not have to buy the next meta because they get it for free. Every single meta, they get it for free as long as you have all three, right? But not only that, but they also have the option to buy it still.
Sure.
Which not only gives them a reward for being a long-term holder, but it also brings new money into the project, because these guys already got their free airdrop, but they're still interested in getting more because they love the project and they believe in it.
Sure. No, I love that idea. I think we are implementing a way where we can do that, like in a sustainable way, like in the sense that if you have, let's say, the first three crews, and well, technically, what we're going to do is the more crews that you have in a single wallet, the more sort of like points or tickets, if you will, that will accrue based on every giveaway that we do. So we'll essentially...
I know, but you know what that overlooks? That makes all the Rovies the same. It does not make the first three special at all.
No. So if you have the first, like, if you bought one of the very first Rovies, that crew gives you more points than if you bought like the later Rovi. So you're running more.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Like it has more influence.
More influence,
exactly. On getting your giveaway, because he's an OG.
Yeah, no, exactly right. So now if you got one of the early Rovies, you have a star crew, or you have one of the earlier ones, then your gravitational pull in terms of the influence on this giveaway is much higher. So, and I think once we get through like all 10K, it's going to be a relatively fair distribution. The people who supported the project early on, they get the higher benefits, but anyone who gets the very last Rovi still has a chance to get these free metas. So I think it's pretty fair, and it doesn't like super concentrate the value like in any one direction.
Yeah, concentration is a big thing.
Yeah.
As soon as you got concentrated money, that's it.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting dumped on.
Yeah.
And nobody wants that. Right. Okay. Cool. So back to breeding. So we're going to need two Rovies to replicate. How exactly is the future Rovi, the baby Rovi, gonna be affected by these AI codex, I'm assuming, right? Because the crews, sure, you could be, invasion or star or whatever. We can have like a completely different crew called the replicants, right? But I feel like for the permutations and for the perfect Rovies, because that's essentially what we're trying to get, right? Assuming we don't get it in the 10,000, we're basically trying to mix and match permutations and try to get a perfect Rovi. Or, just trying to breed. So I'm wondering how the AI codex is going to be affecting, or just how the replication is going to work with two Rovies. and how we should be expecting the baby. Is it
Sure.
also going to be RNG, or are the parents going to be able to affect it like Axie?
Sure. So we've talked about this internally a lot, and what we can do. So we can do this a number of ways. We can either make it completely RNG, which kind of doesn't make sense, but it makes sense. I mean, depending on how you look at it. But there's another way. If let's say you have two Rovies, and one Rovi has the same numbers across. Let's say it has like 2 6s, and another Rovi on this side has like 3 5s, right? So we have relatively pure Rovies on each side, and if you will replicate them, those 5s and those and the 2 6s on this side stay the same, and then you could generate a 3 5s and 2 6s, right? And so so in other words, the AI codex has a heavier influence on what the output is going to be.
Yeah, I had a feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. So the more pure Rovies that you generate, the more likely the pure Rovi is going to be the output.
Okay. Yeah. So very, very similar to Axie then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very similar.
That's what those they do as well. And that's what basically, in my opinion, drives the price for the better Axies.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And the floor Axies just they do their own thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It makes the most sense just because I feel like that's what you would expect when you're replicating. You're bringing two Rovies and you're trying to get the output. So there's a degree of strategy that you could take when trying to get a specific Rovi out. So yeah, it's something to think about for sure.
Cool. So this is just a random question. So on OpenSea or even on MetaZone, it still retains it. So, for example, if you have a Star Transporter or Invasion Transporter or Unleash Transporter, your transporter and supercharger is also going to have the same name, right? Like it's going to be a Star or it's going to be Origin or Invasion, right? So I'm wondering if there's a specific use case for each transporter or supercharger retaining its name, and how the superchargers are actually used and why they have 5 different superchargers. Are we? So I guess let me word better. So is basically the Rovi that was minted in its original supercharger, is that the only supercharger it can get charged in?
No, absolutely not. No. So we want the supercharger to be used by many people, right? So we want people to come into your LAN and like, hey, I need to charge my Rovi. Here's some Rovi tokens, and it compensates you and the landowner, and then they get the Rovi charged, and they can kind of jump in and start earning more tokens. So that's the idea. The transporter itself is really for that function. I mean, sorry, the supercharger is really for that function to charge. The transporter, it could be used, I think, one of 2 ways. Either it's the transporter is for off-chain to on-chain, and then it could be like your own like potential store. So if you're mining like assets, you can sell those assets at your own store. So that's another use case for the transporter.
Sorry, could you say that again? It kind of like went over my head.
Yeah. So the idea for the transporter is that you can take your assets, your 1155s, meaning the metal hedron and the power core. You can take that to the transporter, and you can convert those off-chain assets to on-chain. And then now you can sell that on OpenSea if you wanted, right?
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So it's transporting the assets out of the Rovi matrix into the cryptosphere.
Yes, that's right. And so the idea there is because when designing any game in the crypto space, a lot of the activity happens off chain, and then you can move that on chain if you wanted to, right? And so you could do that if you were really one of those players that wanted to mine the assets, and then maybe a whale comes in and says, well, I don't want to spend time playing the game. I can just go and purchase the assets from Greensifer and then just upgrade my Rovi, spend the Rovi tokens to upgrade them. And then that's how they're going to play the game, right? They're not going to spend the time to mine these assets. So we wanted to make that possible, right? And it's a huge value add for people who own the NFTs, like the transporter as well as the supercharger, because when anyone goes to try to upgrade their Rovi, right, they have to spend tokens. So so yeah, it's one of the main drivers behind like that kind of design decision.
That's cool. That's cool. So interesting that you actually literally answered my next question, but you forgot to answer my first one. So, what is the purpose of having 5 different superchargers?
Oh, so I don't think there's
Like, I understand that it makes the farm super efficient, right?
sure.
Because you have all 5. But what's the reason why we have 5 different superchargers?
So
If each Rovi is not needing to go into its original supercharger.
yeah, so the reason why we have 5 is so that we allow landowners to kind of collaborate with each other to deploy all 5 in a single location. When that happens, then anytime anybody charges at that location with 5 other superchargers, it charges the Rovi significantly faster. So of course, because the landowner has collaborated or maybe owns these superchargers themselves, because the landowner has done that work, then the charge itself is going to be just a little bit more expensive. So that way you generate a little bit more revenue as a landowner of the 5 superchargers. And then the benefit is you get to charge significantly faster. And so now the player can jump in and start battling and earning tokens faster than anyone who's charging, somewhere where there's only a single supercharger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. So the fact that OpenSea has a star or origin or invasion, does that mean any difference then? Because if I'm assuming if the letter of the supercharger doesn't make a difference, I feel like that wouldn't make a difference either.
No, it shouldn't make a difference. It's more of like some of these attributes are more for like collectors more than anything. Yeah. But from a gameplay perspective, we wanted to make sure that it's not about like how early you came in terms of gameplay. It's more about if you came in early, then you should be rewarded in terms of like the attributes and like some of that stuff, like the collectability. But from gameplay, we want to make it relatively even across the board, whether you came in early, came in late. So that's sort of why it is that way.
It's more like it's not about who did it first; it's about who did it right.
That's right, exactly.
I like that. I like that. That's cool. That's cool. Here, let's see.
All right, we got a giveaway to do, and we're kind of like running low on time here. Let's do this. Let me initiate the giveaway bot, and then we'll give everybody a chance.
Oh my God, we've been on a call for an hour and a half.
Yeah, so which is fine. Let me bring this bot up, and then we can do this giveaway.
That's jokes.
So Hunter's asking on YouTube, is this your creation? Yes, it is. So I guess it depends, Hunter, what you're talking about. So if you're looking at the screen in this world, this world is Decentraland, and this is definitely not our creation. But the game Rovi's is our creation, and it came from the platform MetaZone, which helps distribute like NFT playable content like to community. And once the community is like hosting the game, you're interacting with other members of the community. So it's kind of like a new type of style gameplay in I guess in the metaverse or any blockchain gaming. But yeah, that's kind of like what we believe is we believe that the community should be able to participate in a game at a level that they weren't able to before in traditional space. So yeah, that's kind of why we do this. Okay, initiating the bot here. Okay, live chat. So we're going to do this for the next 3 minutes. So if you're listening, you guys got 3 minutes to interact with this bot. So there's going to be 3 winners.
I hope I win. Never won.
Okay, so there's going to be 3 winners, and then the prize is one. It's going to be one Rovi accessory. So the accessories are actually pretty interesting. They're going to be one of the more important components of the game because they help balance like the deficiencies in your RNG to a certain extent. So,
bro, I love it. I love it how you literally walk into my questions. So after like I'll wait till I guess the bot's live.
Okay, the bot is live. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
You know how the RNG stats we have, right? Like strength, we understand. Battery, we understand. Defense, we understand. Intellect, we do not understand. What is the purpose of intellect? Like, are Rovies able to dodge?
The intellect is supposed to be an influence on, if I remember correctly, charging. So the more higher intellect, the faster you charge, and the speed to which you dish out damage. So the higher the intellect, the shorter the time span from its previous attack. So,
It's like a boost on crit rate.
yes, exactly. The rate of attack is increased.
Okay, cool. And you know what was crazy? I was trying to prepare for this interview, right? And I went on MetaZone and I was looking at the assets that you guys want going on, and I noticed one thing. You know, we talk about a lot of metas, but I think it was just like one time you guys went over glitches. Glitches is a meta, right? Glitches is a meta, but we haven't heard about it. Like I was on the website and I seen it and I seen the visual representation of it, and I'm like, I've never seen this meta and I've been in this project for so long.
Yeah. So the glitches are supposed to represent the enemies within the PvE meta, and what they're supposed to do is those are the enemies that you attack to collect the metal hedrons and to collect the power cores. So you have to spend.
Which are the viruses, essentially.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the idea is that you'll jump into the arena. You will spend Rovi tokens to jump in, because as soon as you spend those tokens, you'll be able to mine these components, right? These assets. So once you're in and you're mining these assets, then you can go, and once you run out of battery, you can go and recharge as well as power up your Rovi, right? You embed the metal hedrons and the power cores to upgrade the Rovi. So the glitches represent the enemies you attack, and what we're thinking about in one community call was, what if the community can also own the enemies? And so what you would do with that is you would stake those enemies into a PvE meta, and you would increase the rate of enemy output so that it's easier to mine. So that's what we're thinking about. We're still kind of thinking about that as well. But yeah, that's sort of the idea behind glitches.
Yeah, that's super awesome and very underrated and talked about. I think it's awesome that even the enemy metas will be community owned.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think even the enemies being community owned will have like a lot of, here's what it does. Like from a business perspective, if we allow community members to own the enemies and we allow them to stake those enemies in one location over another, then if we have a good marketer who owns a PvE meta that's always does really good at marketing and brings people to land, it's going to encourage people to stake their enemies there. And what happens when you do that is you get more marketing power, meaning you got other people who are not only contributing to the game at your location, but they're also bringing in their people to come to your location. So it's like this reinforcing sort of a concept. Domino effect, yeah, exactly, about encouraging people to come and play the game. The more people come and play, the more value of everything you own goes up.
That is very true. Very, very true. I had a question. I forgot it. Totally forgot it.
Oh, we got a winner already. So here we go.
No way. Is it me?
Congratulations. No. We got Alan Howick. We got Ape, Brohan, and then Jay.
Congrats, everyone.
Dude, hell yeah. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah.
All right, man. That was a
fast. I have like one last question, sure. And then we can just try to start wrapping up.
So Mikey Seco, how do you interact with the bot? So Mikey, so you purchase these Rovies, you've unboxed them, and pretty soon there's going to be a meta that you'll be able to see the Rovies in Decentraland, and you'll be able to look at them like in the 3D space, and you can show other people that you have that, right? So that's what that meta is supposed to do. And then we'll release other metas that will allow you to take your Rovi and then go and battle to earn tokens. So I guess if you caught the earlier end of the call, we were talking about how this game needs to be released in pieces just because it's complicated and expensive to make games. So we got to release it in pieces. And so pretty soon you'll be able to take your Rovies and then like take them into battle and upgrade them and then earn tokens. Did you find your last question?
I did.
Cool.
I did find it. So it actually was literally what you were just talking about. So we are talking about how accessories are going to be enhancing the low RNG stats, just to make sure that everyone is able to, just survive.
Sure.
Right. So what about the community created accessories? Are they going to have less influence than
no,
the developer created ones?
No. So what the community is going to be doing in terms of the contribution of the accessories is they're merely focused on the design of it, like the looks. It could look like anything, right? So that's what they'll be doing. Like from a gameplay perspective, we'll add that to the kind of the roster of accessories, and then we'll give it its RNG attributes. So each one will have like an equal influence in terms of like whether the team designed it or the community. So it's all even. It's just maybe when you purchase like a community designed accessory, the RNG roll that you get could be really good or could be not so good. So it just really depends.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So the reason why that is because we want contribution from the community. We want people to make, their own accessory, whatever it could be anything. It could be like a cigar, it could be whatever it is you could think of, right? And the influence of that accessory is just purely RNG. So you might get really lucky, right? Or you might not get so lucky. So it just really depends.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I literally just sparked another question.
Yeah.
So you remember how we were discussing about how we're going to combat low stat Rovies, and in my opinion, I think you battled it very, very like in a proper way because the upgrades. But I'd like to explore and just clarify some more details about
Sure.
the metal hedrons and power cores being able to upgrade 50% of the stats.
Sure. Absolutely.
So how does it work? So let's say if I have a Rovi and he has 100 strength out of 1,000, right? And he has 100 defense and 100 intellect and 100 battery.
Yeah. So think of your RNG stats as an in-game range, right? When you have a low stat, your range, meaning when you're playing the game, there's going to be a range of RNG. Sometimes that range is on the low end, sometimes it's on the high end. So what influences where that range is your RNG stats. And so if you got really high RNG, that means your range is on the higher end. Sometimes, so when you're actually playing the game, and a lot of the gameplay mechanics is RNG battle. So when you're doing an RNG battle, sometimes you'll roll a low number, sometimes you'll roll a high number. But where that roll happens is on a scale on the low or high end. Okay, so now you're talking about Rovi with a low RNG. So now that means the scale is on the low end. So what influences the location of that scale will now be your accessories. So if you have an accessory that focuses on intellect, where you're the lowest at, it moves the scale towards the higher end. And so that's how you're able to start competing more evenly against with somebody that has a higher end scale. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Let me try to ask it in a better way. So let's say we got that Rovi I was talking about with 100 everything. Okay, he has 10% power cores and 10% metal hedrons. Okay, so what is theoretically like a rough estimate of where he can upgrade his stats up to? Because I remember you said 50% of the influence comes from upgrades.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify, does that mean that if I upgrade my Rovi 100%, so instead of being 100, he's going to have 550?
Yeah, so think of the flawless score as an overall representation, right? That the flawless score is what you want to increase. And to increase it, you need to add metal hedrons and power cores, right? So now let's talk about a Rovi in the extreme scale where all the RNG stats are 0. That means that
and I just want to clarify to the community that is a possible Rovi. Like, I don't know about 000, but like a very, very like 1% for all stats, that there's a Rovi out there that will have it.
Sure. Absolutely. So let's assume that we have this Rovi, right? It has a perfect 0 across the board. That doesn't mean that Rovi can't win battles. That's not what that means. It means that when that Rovi deals damage, the damage it deals is on the lower end, right? So now the way to increase its battle potential is to inject more power cores and metal hedrons. So when you do that by itself, you can max it out to 50% of the flawless score. That's its max cap at 50%. So now, then the question is, okay, so how do you take it beyond 50% if your stats are all zeros? Well, then now you start adding your accessories. Now your accessories start influencing your actual range of attack. So then, once you start adding those accessories, now the actual scale slides towards the higher end, and now you can deal just a little bit more damage if you have the right accessories attached.
And you can kind of like stack it on top.
Yes.
And okay, so just so we have a crystal clear understanding. So that Rovi that was a 0000, let's say, right? He upgraded himself to 100%.
Yep.
Right. His stats are not going to change.
Correct. They won't.
They will not change.
Correct.
However, his flawlessness will go up. Yes. And because of his flawlessness going up, he will be able to deliver more damage relatively than before. 50% more, essentially.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. Okay. So because we want to make sure that everybody who has a Rovi, no matter what its RNG stats are, can contribute to the battle. And you might want to use that Rovi to mine assets. And then instead of once you max out that Rovi, then you can just take those assets and then put it to your other Rovis, right? So this Rovi, even though it has a poor score in terms of battle, you could still use that to mine tokens, right? So it's not the worst case situation. Or you can add accessories to it to increase its battle potential. Okay,
cool. So it kind of, I don't know, it kind of messed with me a little bit. So yeah, what I was thinking, because the reason why we started the upgrade, right, the discussion on the upgrade was because basically the fact that the battery life, if the battery life is 0, you're going to have a very unprofitable Rovi. So even if the stats, in my opinion, I feel like if they don't change, there's going to be some people with we're essentially going to create an environment where there's going to be scrap Rovis, right? So I feel like we should the community should collectively come up with a solution that how we can at least we should not have a Rovi that takes a loss, because minting it costs money.
Sure.
Right. And the fact that you have a risk of getting a low stat Rovi is enough for some people to take, because you can also get a really good Rovi. But spending that ETH and getting an unprofitable asset would essentially turn off a lot of people.
Sure. Yeah, and that's really the design aspect of the accessories, is that we totally agree. If you get zeros across the board, there needs to be some gameplay mechanic that alleviates that at least a little bit, if not, significantly. So maybe if you get zeros across the board, first of all, it's going to be extremely rare, right? Because getting zeros across the board is like getting, 10,000 across the board. Or what's the max number? 1,000?
1,000, yeah. So that's why only one person, in my opinion, is going to have the zeros across the board.
Yeah.
But that's why I said let's say 100 across the board.
Yeah.
Even 100, in my opinion, is very low
Mm-hmm.
It's just 10%, right? And the stat's not going to be upgraded. And so if this Rovi has such a low battery life, he's constantly going to be trying to go back to the supercharger, and that player is going to be not really involved, like from the timeless aspect of engaging in the game, because he's going to be like, oh, my Rovi's dead already. Okay, I'm signing out.
Yeah.
And then he's just going to lose interest.
Yeah, that's true. I think accessories will kind of alleviate that, but if there's like a large, percentage of the community who has like this issue, then yeah, we'll figure out ways to where the lower your score, there's going to be some multiplier effect to your accessory.
And I think that's one of the strongest aspects of this project. The fact that you can actually bring up these issues, and somebody can handle it.
Hell yeah.
Right? And there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and most importantly, like, we can't really answer this question today just because we don't know the Rovis out there that's going to generate these potential like lower stats. But once they do, and once we can get like a count, like, hey, this is happening to 50% of the community, right? They all got 100s. Then
you want to hear something crazy, Will? You want to hear something crazy? I have the underdog Rovi. I literally have a Rovi mint 6 that's 14%.
Oh, really?
I swear, I have the first underdog Rovi.
Wow. Yeah. So that's mint 6, and you got 14%. So that
14%.
So is your RNG stats kind of like on the lower end, or did you just get a bad roll on your?
I don't even want to talk about it.
Oh, really?
I don't even talk about it. Everything is low. Like everything is below 400. Like I think the highest thing is for something, and that's battery. And I was very happy. I'm just at least he's a fighter.
Okay. No, good.
He'll stick it out.
But I guess if you're a speculator, mint number 6 could be still valuable. I mean, regardless.
Oh, buddy, I'm never selling that.
Yeah,
that's my favorite Rovi.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, we want every Rovi to be playable. Most importantly, so that's why we came up with these accessories, and we thought about like this, like kind of the whole way. But yeah, we're gonna see some scenarios that we didn't really anticipate. So when that happens, we're always open to talking about it and making adjustments.
But yeah, that's awesome. But anyways, I was really happy that you could do this today and have me on this call.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it was very productive for me.
I totally agree. This is fun talking about game design and like the whole rollout of everything, because I think this is going to be one of the main ways that games are going to be designed, is like these little pieces are going to be distributed to the community and they can contribute to the design. So yeah, I appreciate you joining.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Leveraging the community is one of the biggest assets of this whole project, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Hell yeah, man! That's awesome. Let's do this again. We can do this, I guess, on Friday or any other.
Yeah, me anytime, man.
Okay, excellent.
And we'll organize it. And I feel like the more we start engaging, I think we can instigate a domino effect for the rest of the community to follow an example as well. Yeah. And and it doesn't have to be straight with the developers, right? Community members can have this type of calls with each other and just speculate.
Yep, 100%.
Just speculate.
Yeah,
because it's not like a lot of people don't want to talk about Rovis with each other and just explore all the different things we can create.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely encourage that level of collaboration. I mean, I'm willing to join those calls as well if it's happening like in separate Discords or anything. I'll be happy to kind of listen in and like chime in every now and then. So yeah, just hit me up, and I'm always available. And I appreciate you being here, man.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for listening and watching us, and then we'll be back at minimum on Monday for Rovi giveaways and some Pope giveaways. So I appreciate you, of course, joining, and yeah, let's keep this thing going.
See you guys.
All right, bye bye.